you're probably wondering why I'm here to talk to you about relationships. So I thought I'd tell you a little bit about myself. This is the love of my life. His name is Dougal. He's a 7-year-old beagle, enjoys long walks on the beach. I thought about putting my husband up here, but honestly, Dougal's cuter. So I would describe myself as a retention marketer. I've worked in retail and D2C brands for the last 10 years. Really, I'm 20, I just look a lot older. And I work in a really small, scrappy team. And like a lot of the email teams out there, yesterday we learned that most are 3 or less. I'm a little bit of everything. So I don't have an analyst, an engineer, an email developer, a therapist. So I got to do a little bit of all of those in the team. How many of them I do well is debatable, but we give it a good go. So a little bit about Brooklinen. For those that you don't know it, shame on you. But we started in 2014 from a husband and wife team that went on vacation and had a really great night's sleep. And they loved their sheets. So they went down to the hotel reception and said, can we buy these sheets? And they're like, yes, of course. I'm not sure why they spoke quite so highly, but they did. And they were like, it's $800. And Rich and Vicky, our co-founders, were like, ouch. So they then dedicated their lives to finding out how they could make a great set of sheets that did not cost that kind of money. So that was in 2014. It's 6 years later, and we opened our first store this year in Williamsburg, New York. So we're branching into the retail world, and we've discovered a lot of things along the way. Even things like the shop fittings. If you want to try your sheets and feel those sheets, most shop fittings are not made for hanging up sheets. So it's been, an interesting road. But here we are, and I'm going to talk to you about retention. So I want to talk about what is the problem. Your growth team or acquisition team has probably spent a lot of money getting a customer in your door. They come, they put something in their cart, hopefully they purchase, and then they ghost you. And if you're lucky, they might visit you a few times before they leave you, but chances are at some point, they're going to leave you. So the way I think about this is 3 separate groups of how much I dislike these people. One and dones. These are your one-night stands. They come. Sometimes they cost a fortune to come in, so you don't even make it back on your first purchase. And then, poof, they're gone. They never get in touch again. You don't really know why. We have the lapsed customers. They try you a few times. They obviously liked you the first time. They came back, and then they disappear. And then my lapsed loyals, these guys, they drive me crazy. They told me they were loyal. They came back enough times that I thought they were loyal. And then they disappear too. It's really natural that people are going to disappear. What we want to do is figure out how to get as much of those back in the door so that I can keep my job. So the big question, and I don't know about your orgs, but my org has a big argument, what is lapsed? And it's going to differ between every single organization, every different business. If you're lucky enough to have a data science team, they might tell you it should be based on probability of the customer coming back. If you're working with marketers, maybe it's the time frame since the last period. But honestly, the only way to find out what is right for your org is to actually test it. So we set up a test where we sent an email like this with an offer in to a broad range of customers that we thought might be in the lapsed group. And we sent half of them the offer, and the other half we didn't communicate at all. And then we compared how many orders came in with the test group versus the control group. So we created a little chart like this with the bars that basically showed that at different time periods, they're more willing to come back than at other time periods. But then, of course, we had to figure out how expensive it was for each group to come back. And when you're thinking about cost, yes, it's channel cost. I know everyone claims email's free, but it's not. But it could also be things like direct mail. So especially when you're dealing with lapsed customers, often they're not opening their emails anymore. So thinking through other channels that you might need to contact them in. And then also if you're giving an offer, if only 50% of my orders come in as incremental, I've still got to pay for those other 50 that came in that weren't incremental. So that bumps up the cost as well. So then finding a sweet spot for you where you feel that the number of incremental orders you're getting is high enough and the cost is something that you're willing to pay. And obviously how much you're willing to pay is going to depend on the amount of margin that you get back from those customers when they do return. So that's that. And even though that might be the best time to think about what is a lapsed customer for you, it's never too early to start. This is a chart of how long it takes our customers to come back. And even bizarrely in the sheets industry, where you think you don't need to buy your sheets very often, people are most likely to come back really soon after they just purchased. So really capitalizing on that love, where they feel that they want to engage with us, they want to make a purchase. And so we start our prevention campaigns pretty much the moment you make your first purchase. I'd also tell everyone to understand who is a good customer. For all of us, it's going to be different. Whether you need a certain average order value so that your shipping is profitable, whether it's the amount of time people come in, if it's a subscription, how long they stay subscribed for. By understanding what is a good customer for you, you'll know really who to target. Because let's be honest, if it's not a good customer for you and you're losing money on them, you might actually not want to bring them back. And then another big tip is to look for correlations for the first purchase to see what makes them more likely to come back. So in a variety of different businesses, I found this can be really random things. My favorite was the day of the week they purchased on. And we eventually dug deeper into this, and we found out that if they purchased on a Thursday, by the time it shipped on a Friday, then nothing was moving through, UPS, FedEx on Saturday, Sunday. So the time it took for the item to get to them was so much longer that if you ordered it on a Thursday, chances of you coming back were pretty slim. So the correlations don't necessarily have to make sense to you at first glance. But other ones I found: discount amount on your first purchase, the number of categories you purchase in, and whether you were referred. In some companies, I've seen if you were referred by someone, that can make you a great customer. And in other organizations, it can make you a terrible customer. So it's very much down to an individual basis. And so yesterday we talked about stealing email ideas. So I'm a big proponent of stealing things. Please don't tell the cops. So I like to steal processes. And people should feel that changing your process is not a bad thing. And process is not a dirty word. Process is a good thing, even in a small team, to make sure that you're giving information and telling everybody everything they need to know. So I like to steal this from our product team. Our product team works on 2-week sprints. And in particular, why I love this is, I'm very much guilty of this, we tend to set up workflows. And maybe it's for an abandoned cart. And you set it and you forget it. Maybe if you're lucky, you tested it when you did set it up, but then you're not constantly optimizing. There's always room to improve, and we know that our lifecycle flows are probably the most valuable things that we send as emailers. So making sure that you constantly test and constantly evolve, it's going to make a huge difference. Because unless you strike gold the first time, it's probably not the best flow that it could be. So every 2 weeks, I sit down with my team and we start designing tests. We talk about all the tests we want to do. Each member of the team is given a separate segment to work on. So they all have objectives to make sure that their segment performs as well as it should. So if it's making your first purchase, there's one person who sits there thinking about that flow to get them to make their first purchase all the time. There's one person that's there thinking about, people stop opening my emails. They're constantly trying to get that engagement rate up. So we sit down as a group and we design the tests. These aren't necessarily pretty. You can see they're hand-drawn things. We don't necessarily have beautiful documentation. But we make it work. We'll then go into a development phase, and often we'll try to do a really quick, dirty test. It doesn't matter if it's not the best thing we ever wanted to create. It may not be the most beautiful email. In 2 weeks, honestly, we're not going to get anything through our design team. So we'll do something quick and scrappy to kind of get a test and proof of concept. We will set it live in the test. I'm a big proponent of the promotions annotations in Gmail. If anyone's not using it, you should, unless you're in the linen industry, in which case, don't. In which case, if you don't mind just getting up and leaving, that would be great. Everything I tell you here is a lie, honest to know. So every 2 weeks, we then get back together and we talk about what was successful, what did we learn. And it could be things that are really related to that one test, Or it could be something that's just like, you know what, if I put first name in the subject line, they seem to open more. Stuff that can be shared between the different segments. And I know a lot of retention tests cannot be done in 2 weeks. If you're trying to see, your 90-day retention rates, that's really hard to change in 2 weeks. But this gives us that reminder to go back every 2 weeks, check how it's doing. Should I be changing it? Is it working? And gives us that little nudge. So that's why we do it. So I'm going to go and give you some tips that we're using. All the images are unfortunately Brooklinen, sorry. But they were the easiest ones to get hold of, I'll be honest. So how we prevent lapsing. So one of my biggest recommendations is even before delivery, you can start changing the way people feel about your brand. People are really excited when they make a purchase. And you can see that they'll go back to the transactional emails for order confirmation and delivery multiple times, and they want to find out what their orders are, and they're excited. They feel that love for you already. So how can we contact them and give them useful information before they get their item that's going to make their experience better? So these are examples of tips that we send out before you get your package that should tell you useful things like you need to wash your sheets if you want the softest experience. It also helps us set expectations that if you put sheets that aren't washed on the bed, they're probably not going to feel as soft and lovely as once they've been through a wash and dry cycle. So that also really helps keep our customers happier when they try the products for the first time, and makes everyone feel loving rather than having a bad experience and then not realizing that they're fantastic for 2 weeks until they wash them, or a week. And then we ask our customers how they're feeling. So I want to share the most useless fact with you that you'll probably learn today. And that's you're 70% more likely to repurchase if you're happy. I know what you're thinking, no sheet Sherlock. I flew all the way out here to be told customers who are happy, buy more. Well, the reason we do this is not so much for that number, but really to understand who is happy and who is not. Self-declared data is probably the most powerful thing you can use to personalize your emails to people. So if you tell us you're happy, we're going to give you an offer. And that's to get you to come back, because we know that you're likely to come back pretty quick. If not, we will try to offer you help, either send you to the website or get our customer service team in touch with you to try to make it better. And what we also do that's quite interesting is we put this on their profile. So in our ESP, we can now see if they were happy or not happy during the first purchase. So it's something that we can always go back and target and then try to look and change behavior later. And after we've asked, we ask again. So we tend to use a really simple question for the first purchase. But after the first purchase, we really rely on NPS for a couple of reasons. One, I know everybody has mixed feelings about NPS, but for us, it works really good as a score of just generally how happy customers are. And you'll see it fluctuate after we have an event and different types of customers come in. But we also put this score on their profile, and we track their NPS scores. So we can see when their behavior changes. We often see that as a newer customer, they're much likely to rate us lower, and as an older customer, they'll rate us higher. And I know this guy is really ugly. This was a 2-week test. He's getting a redesign, so hopefully, if you do make a purchase anytime soon, you'll see a prettier, handsomer email. And a quick little cheat that we discovered. Me being the engineer on the team, and I know nothing about engineering, wanted a way that if you said you were unhappy, customer service could get in touch. So what we didn't do was connect it to our customer service platform. What we did do was trigger another workflow that would send an email that basically said, we're sorry, get in touch, and reply to it, so that it would filter directly to our customer service, because all of our emails, when you reply to them, go to our customer service team. So it was a little hack to get around having to do any engineering work and still get everything to customer service. So I'm a big proponent of showing emotion, talking about your emotions. Not to your partner, but just to your customers. Makes it easier. Especially in the retail world, we tend to focus on the negative emotions, fear and urgency, and you're going to miss out. But when you're building long-term relationships, you want to think of those positive emotions. the achievements, the appreciations of the world. You know, you've unlocked, you've done it, we're thankful for you. Those kind of emotions really help you build those relationships with your customers. And then we have a cute example of our post-purchase flow, where they make a heart shape because we love you. And we'll give people $20 credit to come back and try us a second time. I know we just had a talk on personalization, so I'm not going to repeat it. But we do want to make things personal. We were one of those 70% that did not know how to use our data and couldn't do any personalization a few months ago. So we had to get a little scrappy and a little hacky, and we figured out that if we, the problem we had with our ESP was we knew what you had purchased in an order through an event, and you could use that event to trigger in workflow. But if you want to use that information anywhere else, in any other workflow, any other email campaign, you are out of luck. So if I wanted to send you an email about towels because I knew you bought towels, there wasn't much I could do about it apart from create a list and blast people. So what we did was when you make a purchase as an event, we now put another attribute on your profile so that we know what you purchased, and we can use that again. And then they all add up. So we can see how many different categories you're purchasing in and use that to personalize. So this top example is from one of our emails that essentially will either show you loungewear, towels, or sheets, depending on what you've expressed interest in. And we found this really powerful. Even simple segmentation, where this is only 3 versions, can do a lot before you start thinking about getting into really deep personalization. And then we've recently got into personalized product recommendations. I'm going to be honest, we cheated. We got someone in who could do this for us. So we pulled these in using Movable Ink because we thought that their algorithms that they could do and the information they could provide with us was much stronger than anything that we could develop in-house that wouldn't take a good couple of years. So the way this works is it looks at the items that you've browsed, and then it looks at the items that everyone else has browsed and what they went on to purchase, and it'll show those recommendations to you. We're still working on not having white items on a really light gray background. Turns out that was the big technical problem. But otherwise, we've seen a 30% increase in clicks. What's really interesting is we can get to the type of sheets you're interested in. If you ever want to be bored by sheets, just let me know. There's a lot of different weaves. I know more about sheets than I thought I would ever know, honestly. But different sizes, different materials, and we sell a lot more than just sheets these days as well. So all those things get pulled into the recommendation engine, and the computer is 30% smarter than I am, which is great. I also want to talk about making it easy. So we've tried to really replicate the email experience with your web experience. So this is an example where you click through from an email and it gives you the same $20 offer. And it's both at a nano bar on top of the website and in your cart. And this worked for a while really well. And if we were sending you an email that said $20 off, click through, this worked. What wasn't working was the fact that if we sent you any other email that didn't specifically say $20 off, there was nothing in the email that would tell the website to trigger the same offer. So one day I might be telling you $20 off. The next day maybe I'm just saying you should buy sheets. And now your $20 just appears to have disappeared. So we put a fix in place. Again, a little hacky, but just by having UTMs that will help our website understand what that customer should be seeing. And again, it's all related to attributes we put on their profile. Pretty much the easiest thing we figured out how to do in our ESP is put something on their profile, and then you can target it anywhere else. So a big recommendation to put as much information as you can on someone's profile. And then offers. I'm sure most people have probably tested offers in some form or other. And maybe you know that dollars off does better than percentage off, or maybe it should all be about a free gift. But what's really difficult to get down to is what does each individual need? Even if you test your offers by segment, different people are going to respond to offers in a different way. Some people like to do the math and figure out that 15% off may be better than $15 if I spend $100. Other people might just be like, I don't really care about $15, but free stuff gets me. So one of the tactics we do is we rotate our offers. So to the same segment, 1 week they might get a 15% offer, and then a couple of weeks later, maybe they get a $20 off if they didn't purchase and take the action we wanted to. And this also helps those offers becoming stale. If we send the same offer every single email, there's only so many times someone can see 15% off before they just decide it's not for them and they unsubscribe. And also to continue testing. You never know what's going to work. You're lucky if you strike gold the first time you test an offer, but sometimes it's the really strange constructs, whether it is tiered promotions, which might help increase your AOV if that's something that's really important for you, or it could be that your customer is looking for something really simple and really easy to understand, and then maybe a straight discount off works better for you. So keep testing and keep rotating, and just making sure that your customers are not getting bored of your offers. And then I just told you how great artificial intelligence can be. Now I'm going to tell you how dumb it can be. I was going to make a joke about it should be the user, but that would be me. So I'm going to get myself in trouble. Artificial unintelligence. So my ESP came to me and said, you know what, we have a model that can predict when your customer will make the next purchase. And then anything later than that would be lapsed. This sounds like, great, my job is over, you've replaced me, we're good. However, we decided to run a test of this. We took everyone that the model said would make a purchase in the next month. From just one segment of people, they were all multiple purchases, so we had a lot of good data on them. And then we watched, and we actually saw, for the ones the model said, a 90% higher conversion rate, which we're like, great, this is perfect. This is everything we ever wanted. Something that can predict who's going to make a purchase now. We then looked at the rest of the segment and who made a purchase during the exact same time frame from the same segment, and we saw that 89% of all the purchases during that time from that segment did not come from the people in the model. So there's an element that, yes, they certainly can predict some of the people that are going to make the next purchase in the right date and the right time frame, but they're missing the far majority. And this is a real risk when we think about segmentation, that if we start segmenting this 10% off, that we're going to miss 90%. We're going to miss the larger part of the segment. And that's where a lot of the money is going to be coming from, obviously. So I'm always very skeptical about artificial intelligence. Test it, make sure it works for you, and then make sure that there isn't anything dirty hiding there that means that you're going to lose 90% of your revenue. And then I know we're at an email conference, but a lot of people yesterday said that this was, I don't want to say a part-time job, but we have other channels, other things that we're all doing. So I would encourage everyone to work with your partners in other channels or with yourself if it is you, and think about your channels, how your channels can work together. So we ran a big campaign for President's Day, and we sent it to people either via email and SMS, or nothing at all. And we found that if we sent email, we got a 25% lift over sending nothing at all. So at least my job was doing something. SMS, we got a 33% lift. And let's be honest, SMS gets a better lift because our most engaged customers are in SMS. That's who we asked to join SMS originally. So it's a bit of a hack. I do love SMS, but it's not quite as rosy as the picture looks. And then email and SMS, I keep hitting my face, I'm sorry. The email and SMS had a 75% lift. And even with my bad math, like the sum of the whole is not the sum of the parts. So it's really interesting that sometimes people need multiple communications in multiple channels. So I would implore everyone to find what those channels are. Maybe it's SMS, maybe it's direct mail, maybe it's smoke signals. It could be anything. And I'd also like to make an impassionate plea, if there is an ESP in this room, when you're building emails and looking at GIFs, this drives you crazy. Like, does anyone else look at their GIFs for hours on end, going around and around and around? I'm actually just tempted to leave it up here so that you can look at it for the next 2 hours and we'll go stir crazy. So yes, any ESPs in the room, can you please make a way that we stop having to look at the GIFs so many times? If one thing comes out of this, I would really like it to be that. And the last thing I'm going to recommend to you is to try again. You know, your customers are going to lapse and they're going to become less engaged and they're going to leave you more, but you can still get them back. These are two examples from 1 year and 2 year lapsed. And sure, the results are nowhere near as good as if I send an email to people that purchased recently, but people do come back. You know, people don't necessarily mean to leave you. They just might think that they don't need any sheets. They've just ignored your email for 2 years and now have decided to look at it again. It's really tough to know what's going on in people's lives. So keep contacting them and don't give up on your customers. They may come back eventually. And that's it from me, thank you. If anybody does want to try Brooklinen Sheets, you can use UNSPAM 15. And I know it says it's valid in April, it's valid till the end of April. I just don't know what month I'm in. Whoops. Any questions? Yes.
Do you split test or track retention by gender?
The question is, thank you for reminding me, I was going to forget, do we split test or test by gender? So we've struggled to really get good gender information. You know, we use some tools that can tell us from credit card details in a general, and sometimes we do ask people. We find that we sway more female than we do male, probably not that surprising, but we haven't specifically tested by gender. We do try to have a mix of models when we're using humans in our photography, but it's not something that we've particularly focused on yet, but could be in the future. Anything else? Yes?
For the Make It Personal email that you referenced, do you use one email and do additional statements to render each version, or do you do like a split conditional and send all three emails?
Yeah, so the question is around when we did the Make It Personal email, how did we build it? Did we build it as one email with multiple conditions or like 3 separate emails? And the answer is one email with multiple conditions. It's really easy when you have 2 or 3 versions to just manage 3 different emails. But by the time you get to more and more versions, it doesn't become sustainable. And it also means that your process gets longer. Right now, somebody has to QA 3 whole emails. So I'd always rather build one email with more versions just to cut down on the production time as well. So, yes?
You showcased like the year and 2 year retention email, but how much during those times when you've done 2 years that you're still emailing them actively, or have you sunsetted them to a certain degree?
Yeah, pretty much constantly. It really depends on how they interact with us. So if they stay interacting with our emails, they'll keep getting them. If they interact less or they stop, they'll start getting them less frequently and might only get the really big messages from us, the sales or Black Friday type messaging. But we try to keep everyone on the database for as long as possible. But we'll also try to re-engage them in other channels. So if you stop opening our emails, we might send you a direct mail to just kind of be like, hey, remember us? But we never stop emailing until they completely stop opening our emails. I feel really bad that this has been a question in this corner for a while and he had his hand up for so long.
Yeah, I have a question on your post-purchase flow where you have if they're happy or not. You have, if they say they're happy, you give them an offer. Just curious what the process behind that decision was, because you might have spent a bunch of money acquiring this person and you finally got them a purchase and then you're spending more to get their next purchase. Like, what was their testing process behind, like, okay, not an offer doesn't work as good, or maybe that's just from people who came in organically. Just kind of curious about that.
Yeah, definitely. We don't want to pay for orders we don't have to. Oh, repeat the question. I was like, all right, I'm not good at charades. It's a film. Now you've made me forget the question. Can you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
Sure. Like, why are you choosing to send an offer to
Oh.
someone who just purchased?
Yes. So the question is, why are we choosing to send an offer to someone who just purchased? And we did do the math and figure out whether it makes sense to or not. And the return we get by getting so many customers back does make it worth it. Obviously, it's going to depend on how much it costs you to acquire in the first place, what your margins are, all those kind of things. But for us, it does make sense. They don't necessarily all use it, but it gives us a great way to say thank you to them and to make them feel appreciated. So even if they don't use it then and they come back a few months later, it warms them up for us.
And what's the number that's happy enough to get the $20?
So for new customers right now, it's a, are you happy, yes or no? And to be clear, if you say no, customer service will contact you and you can still have the offer. But it's much more of a personalized touch. They're going to try and solve your issue first. For NPS, anything less than a 6 gets customer service to intervene. Yes, am I getting kicked off?
Yeah,
Sorry.
Any last question?
Quick one.
For those unengaged subscribers, do you put them onto a separate IP address for sending purposes until they re-engage?
We do not. So the question was, do we use a separate IP for those unengaged? And right now we keep them all together, but we do monitor our deliverability. We make sure that if they stop engaging with us, they eventually stop receiving emails.